Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Thursday here on Fight TV. And what a day it is. It is June. No, why? I don't even know why I say the dates anymore. I always get them wrong. May 21st, right? 20th? Who the hell cares? We're here on Fight. It's time to talk wrestling. And we are joined, folks, by our tremendous team. Here today are my co-host, David Hero.
Me? Well,
that's
the intro I get. That's the only intro I get now. Is that?
Yeah, that's all you get. Oh, wait a minute. I'm supposed to say David Octavius and Tiberius, yes, the alleged backyard, one-time knockout, straight edge, hardcore Hall of Famer hero. How the heck are you here on a Thursday?
You know what? It's a fantastic Thursday. Celebrating my nephew Hank's 10th birthday. You know, the cute kid with the evil intentions, and you know, so far it's been a great day. Can't complain.
Well, folks, we are also joined by the star of this show, one Hurricane Helms. Hurricane, welcome back to PWR PrimeTime. Tremendous success last week. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being with us again. How the heck has your day been so far?
Today's been pretty good, man. I'm not the star yet, okay? I'm just icing on the cake. You guys have built a house. I'm just visiting the house yet. You know, I'm hoping to help you guys build it even bigger, but you know, I mean, let me be humble and a rare moment of humility. This is still your guys' show.
Well,
we're just going to name it after me.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, your name is the only one that's on it. It's Primetime with Hurricane Helms, and I'm fine with that. Take some of the heat off of Dave.
Exactly. Yeah, please.
Well, an active week in professional wrestling for both the good and the bad. But let's rewind straight away to last night. On television, we had, of course, the Wednesday Night War, people are calling them, between AEW and NXT. Over on Dynamite, it was the go-home show leading into Double or Nothing, which is this Saturday on pay-per-view. And later in this episode, we will be bringing back Be the Booker. as both Hurricane and Dave will be fantasy booking the pay-per-view event this Saturday from AEW. But last night it was Dynamite, and it was also NXT TakeOver from Orlando, Florida, where we saw a unique end to the tournament that wasn't the end of the tournament to determine the finals, and a change made there. So with that in mind, first, Dave, which show did
you know what? I was watching both shows last night because the why is Cal loves watching Orange Cassidy.
Yes.
I wanted to cheer on Drake Maverick last night. So we're going back and forth between both channels, watching both shows. And interesting, just again, side by side, two shows, very different but very similar. A lot of great young stars on the come up, as they say. And it's just amazing how, as similar as they are, they're both two completely separate brands.
Well, I'm a student of the game, so I watch both shows.
overachiever.
And, yes. And I got to support everybody. I got friends on both shows. So, and just so that I at least sound like I know what I'm talking about for you guys, I watched every minute of both shows and Impact on Tuesday.
Oh my gosh.
I'm ready.
That is commitment. That is dedication. So, well, let's talk about them then. First, AEW Dynamite, of course. It was the big show leading to the big show this weekend, this Saturday, Double or Nothing on pay-per-view from Jacksonville, Florida. And, well, we saw the champion, Jon Moxley, in action. In fact, we saw the beginning of the show was Mr. Brody Lee, revealing to Mox why he wasn't going to give him that championship title back and surrendering the services of 10 in a match with Mox. And then after the match, when Mox held 10 hostage to a degree, he then called out Brody Lee, who didn't come and bring the title. In fact, said, take 10 and do what you want with them. What are you thinking about that whole opening contest between those two, and your overall thoughts on Mr. Brody Lee's time in AEW so far? Shane.
I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed Moxley's match with 10. I think it served its purpose for what it was. I wish he would have hit his finish, just got the 1, 2, 3, and then all the damage afterward. You know, anytime you get a chance to, establish that finish, I kind of lean toward that old school mentality. And I'm going to say something weird too. I know we always pick on Vince McMahon about not wanting to call a championship a belt. It seems like that's all AEW does is call it the belt.
Yeah.
Like I understand in the heat of the moment, in the heat of a promo saying belt, saying title. But how much better does it sound when they say AEW World Championship as opposed to just belt? Like that was something that just really stuck out to me in that particular storyline last night. Like I say, it does get annoying how Vince used to harp on it. Don't call it a belt. Okay, I'm sorry. This is just a conversation backstage. We're not even being filmed right now. In the context of promos and with the announcer saying, hey, they took your belt. How in the world wouldn't the announcer say, they got the AEW World Championship? What are you going to do? It's a small thing, but I'm agreeing with Vince McMahon on this one.
It's interesting you put it in that perspective, Shane, because all we hear about is the things you can't say in WWE or the terms, wrestler versus sports entertainer, all that stuff. But no one's ever put it in that context where, okay, we understand what can't or isn't being said, but what's the alternative and how much better or worse does it sound? And in that case, it absolutely sounds better to say the world championship title than to call it a belt, because what is it? The belt Cody's wearing, the muscle belt, or are we talking about the championship belt?
Yeah, exactly. Especially for a new viewer. And you always need to take in mind that there's a new viewer watching, even if it's one person. Oh, and they're going to go, belt? What the hell is he talking about? You want to say, and two, especially if you're the champion, I'd much rather call myself the world champion instead of belt holder.
Yeah. What about the strap?
Like I say, in the heat of the moment, when you're saying this, that, and the other, and if strap comes out, fine. If belt comes out, if title comes out, that's fine. Because you don't want to be redundant saying the same words over and over and over. So I get that in the heat of the moment. But when you're promoting something that's important to you, and I know I touched on this last week, but this is something that these guys are going to fight over. They're going to punch each other in the face over.
Yes, value.
It should be of regards at all times. At all times.
Dave, you say it should be important. This is an argument you've made for a number of years.
Absolutely, because you're fighting over something of value. I mean, when you say belt, you think of what holds up your pants. You say championship. I mean, it's always the world champions. It's it's the UFC championship belt. It's always
title.
Championship title, and it's just amazing to me how at times AEW, it seems like they try very hard to be everything anti-WWE.
Well, but the show. Is this being anti-WWE or just doing it a different way? I mean, the only bar to raise them against or to compare them against is that of WWE, I guess you could say. So fair comparison. But
no, I mean, you can compare it to Ring of Honor. You can compare it to to TNA Impact Wrestling or New Japan. It's not just AEW versus WWE. It is on. But as far as the other companies, and like Shane said, he even watched Impact. They consider it a championship title, the Impact Heavyweight Championship.
To be honest, the way Moose is carrying the TNA World Heavyweight Championship right now is better than any champion in any company is presenting their championships.
Really?
That's how it should be presented.
That's a bold statement. Might need a little more explanation there for the fans who will say, how dare you say Impact is doing anything better than WWE or AEW?
It's just that championship means something to him. Like even the storyline of Brody Lee still in the AEW championship, that to me is you're just assuming that the AEW championship has this long leniency. It doesn't. It's still a new championship. It's a big company, no doubt. Mox is only the second champion. It's barely been in existence. It doesn't have. That's something you would do with the big gold, or something like that. Something that you would do with the Stanley Cup. Yeah. If a new hockey team came out and somebody stole their trophy, you'd be like, who gives a shit? If somebody steals the Stanley Cup, that's a big deal.
Well, and every time you see Moose wearing his championship, it's around his waist. It's not over his shoulder. It's not around his neck. It's not in his hand. He's legitimately wearing it around his waist.
Yeah.
Bobby Heenan said it best. He said, you never see a Super Bowl champion or a World Series champion wear his ring on a necklace around his neck. It's on his finger. He's not wrong.
Well, speaking of rings, continuing to talk about AEW, good discussion there, guys, of course. But we saw MJF in a match with Marco Stunt, and, it, of course, turned into a typical MJF situation, but he's so great, and Marco's so tremendous as well. But we saw him use that ring as well and use it at the end of the match, and that led to a whole thing too there. But MJF, David, I think you are a fan. This is the one person in AEW, rather, aside from Dustin Rhodes and Cody, that you are a fan of.
Well, I'm also, I have John Moxley on my draft team, but I mean, MJF, he goes out there and he does good business. He's not pandering. He's just going out there and he's old school with a little sprinkle of 2020 in him, and he gets a reaction from the fans, good, bad, or indifferent. When he's in the ring, there's going to be fan engagement, and you can't say that with everybody.
That is true.
I agree. I think MJF is the best heel in AEW. I think he's the best heel, about one of the best heels in the entire business.
So here's my question: as we talk about MJF, and we'll talk about more about when we get to Double or Nothing, but you've got someone else who's incredibly popular in AEW, and it's someone you talked about, Dave Hero, about wanting what Cal wanted to watch in AEW last night, but Orange Cassidy. And I will readily admit, when he first appeared in AEW and I first saw some of his matches on TV, I said, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then, Dave, we were at Revolution in Chicago back in February. And at that moment, it clicked in my head. I said, this could be the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's you got MJF, who you said is a bit of a classic, along with the new. What the hell is Orange Cassidy, Shane? How do you define what he's presenting in that ring? Because we've never, as far as I can recall, seen anything even remotely like it.
All I can say is this. For decades and decades and decades, we've heard every veteran in the world say less is more. Who does less?
Nobody.
Orange Cassidy does.
So all the veterans got to be quiet. You know, here's the thing. I've teamed with him before, and I didn't know it was the same guy. I want to reverse real quick, just because of the MJF thing. I skipped over this unintentionally. The way Warlow, or whatever his name is, he's punked out Luchasaurus 2 weeks in a row.
Ah, yes.
Made him look like a little punk, and I don't know why they would do that for number one, and I don't know if it was intentional, but it needs to be addressed going forward. And Luchasaurus allowing himself to be punked.
Yeah, I was
might be a
last
problem.
night. I was shocked by that last night when they were face to face, and no one did anything. You would have expected Luchasaurus to at least push him away, and that didn't happen.
I've had run-ins where I went to make the save, and the heel didn't bail in time, and I went over there and knocked the shit out of him on purpose. You're gonna respect that. I can't believe it was actually even worse last week when they did the damage to Marco Stunt, and Luchasaurus just looked at him like he was afraid. Yeah. Is that the story? That's the one guy he's afraid of? I don't know, but I know he's got punked out 2 weeks in a row, and that's what I see as a man. If I'm going in and somebody's right there, that means you're not afraid of me. And I'm either going to have to make you afraid, or we're going to have to address that situation.
Yeah, for me, that was very kabuki-ish when I saw that last night. And I was like, who knew? And I'm thinking, did somebody forget to do something there? Because it just seemed completely out of place and unnatural.
I'll go even further. About 2 years ago, maybe 2018, maybe 2017, I'm doing an indie show up Northeast. I come in, normally the heel gives me the ring. This is an indie show. This isn't a pay-per-view. I don't have no storyline going with this guy. Normally they give me the ring, or at least get out of my way so I can do whatever. I go to get to the corner, and this guy just kind of steps up and bows up to me and is in my face. I don't know who he is. I don't know if this guy's going to try to do something. So I pie-faced the hell out of him and tell him, you better get the hell out of my way. And it was dead serious there for a minute.
Wow.
And that's exactly what should have happened right there with Luchasaurus. Some should have happened. But later on, we got back together. I told the guy, I said, you ain't going to punk me out. I'm the babyface here. You ain't going to punk me out like that. Number one, I was bigger than the guy and could legit beat his ass. So,
yeah, there was no social distancing last night.
Sometimes you got to get real.
Yeah.
No, that's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah. But going back, what were we talking about, Orange Cassidy? That's one of those things where, you know what? If you don't get it, guess what? Sometimes you don't get. I don't get Justin Bieber. You know what? Doesn't matter. Millions of people do. Millions of people do. I grew up on hip hop. I didn't like rock and roll. Guess what? Millions of people do. Sometimes you just got to sit back and go, hey, I don't know why, but millions of people watch Twilight. More people watch Twilight than watch Pulp Fiction. I don't understand that at all. But some things you just got to accept. And Orange Cassidy, we just got to accept him because the kid is over. And last night, he showed what he can do in terms of actually wrestling. What can happen when he gets fired up? What can happen when he gets mad? Kids got skills.
Shane, with Orange Cassidy, you can't have him on TV every week because the act will eventually get old because he only do so much with his hands in his pockets. And I think that's why we've only seen him maybe 2 or 3 times on TV actually performing in the last 6 or 7 months.
I agree. And that's more of this is more. I do want to say though, them doing a throwback to the spot of him getting his head kicked off last week, them throwing back to that spot, that was brilliant. Whoever came up with that, hats off to you. That was absolutely brilliant.
And brilliant in the way that when he came out, for his entrance, he ducked it, barely flinched. But, I got to say, you talk about the vulnerability of how often you can use a character or a talent like Orange Cassidy. It seems to have a shelf life, and that's unfortunate. And I think the shelf was teetering a little bit even last night in that matchup because we saw – it's 2 ways to look at it. Either we saw more into his character or we saw too far into his character because he was showing distress, showing peril because in that match with Rey Fenix, he brought it to him. And there were a lot of moments there where, the fakes, the false finishes, the all of that, where Orange Cassidy really had to be a different performer in the ring. And in his recent matchups, that worked for the short periods of time they did it. But in the extended periods of time last night, I found myself confused at times.
I loved how he sold during the match, because for a guy that shows no effort, he was obviously in pain the way he was selling. And everything that Ray Phoenix did to him looked like it was hurting. So, I mean, for with that aspect of it, I thought that part was great, the way he sold whatever Ray Phoenix was doing to him.
Yeah, and I agree too. And I thought it was interesting, just Ray Phoenix playing the more aggressive, kind of heel in the ring, considering his flashy style would lead to a traditional babyface. But they both kind of went at each other. That was an aggressive match. They did a lot of big moves. Maybe there was kind of a couple false finishes too many.
Agreed.
But that was a solid match. A couple of the dives. Those catches could have been a little better. It looked like Ray Phoenix in particular took a hard bump.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
If I was AEW, I would use that, because I guarantee you, I promise you, it hurt. Don't waste it. Don't waste it like they did with Sammy Guevara, which we might probably talk about later.
Yeah.
They wasted a big bump last week by not acknowledging it this week.
Mm-hmm.
They could use that Ray Phoenix, because I promise you that hurt him.
Oh, and then when Colt Cabana damn near landed on him, 10 seconds later. I mean, it's like there was a waterfall of dives on top of everybody, and not everybody was getting caught last night.
Yeah, dives are dangerous. That's one of the things, high risk maneuvers. So not being caught's dangerous. The guys coming down. I mean, sometimes you got guys come down. They come down knee heavy. They come down feet heavy. My own tag team partner in WCW broke my nose because he wasn't wearing knee pads. His bony ass kneecap hit me right in the nose when I was there to catch him.
With Ray Phoenix last night, if anything was obvious, what happened in that spot?
The guys should have stepped in a little bit, but he did one of those dives. It wasn't just a traditional somersault. He added a little flair to it, so to speak. And I mean, that's one of those things. For the first time, it could throw you off if you don't know where the guy's going to land. If you don't know where he's going to land, that's the most important aspect of the catch, is knowing what that guy's going to be and being able to judge it. Just today, I posted a clip, just coincidentally, a fan had put up of Super Crazy doing a dive on me, and he was going to come up short, and I almost did a baseball slide underneath him to catch him. And I retweeted it, and I put base. How low can you go?
But I mean, they were almost a foot short of catching him. I mean, it was.
He also went up and came straight down. The way he dove, it looked like he could have went further, but then when he added the twist, that changed the trajectory of where he was going. And so if you're not used to that, and I don't know how, and you can't get used to that until you take it several times. So if that was the first time he ever did that particular dive on those particular group of guys, that's when the risk factor comes into play.
It's interesting. Even after that Ray Phoenix bump and fall and near miss, or was a miss, Orange Cassidy did a dive right after, and he too got seemingly a bit more elevation and a bit more distance than he planned to get. I cringed when he landed. Now he landed a bit better, but it still didn't look good.
Well, dives hurt. Dives hurt. This is something I teach in all my seminars. Every bump you take hurts, whether you feel it or not. And that doesn't make sense until years later when everything hurts for absolutely no reason.
I'll let you guys discuss this one because I'm deeply interested to hear your thoughts, but it was the confrontation or whatever it was between Arn Anderson and Jake the Snake Roberts. And you had two separated by a 6-8 foot wide or long table, two legends, of course, two tremendous legends, the best ever in the business, discussing, the matchup between Cody and Archer this Saturday at the pay-per-view. It was good. The words were good. The dialogue was good, but it lost me a bit at the end during the pull-apart because I don't think I was at a point to believe that these two men were still in a place where they should be pulled apart. But what did you guys think of that entire segment between Arn and Jake? We'll start with you, David.
I was shocked to find out that they've never wrestled each other in the past. Because you got to figure both guys were down in the NWA territories for so long that they never crossed. I thought it was good. I thought both guys did a great job of lobbying for their talents. Arn could not have put Cody over any more than what he already did. And Jake was absolutely the villain with Lance Archer. For me, they kind of gave away the finish for the match, basically saying Archer's going to go after Tyson. Tyson's going to knock him out. Then Cody, he gets the big win, and then Cody and Mike Tyson can celebrate together. But yeah, towards the end when it became a pull apart, I'm thinking we're not going to see a spine buster or a DDT. I honestly thought Lance Hoyt was going to come out of nowhere and take out Arn Anderson, but that didn't happen either. So for me, the way it started off great, the middle was great, but the ending, they could have done something different.
What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with anything either of you guys said. I think the verbiage was incredible. Delivery was great. Dave, me too. Surprised that these two never had a match. You know, it's one of those things you just assumed had happened. I think they did miss a moment or a line somewhere. Arn should have refereed DDT because Jake invented the DDT. Jake invented the DDT. We all know that. Arn's was a little different, so I think there's a line there. I don't know what it was. Like, you invented the DDT, but I mastered it. Something like that. They could have set Jake off a little bit. That's just fanboy Shane jiving in there, you know. But I love what they said. Arn, the way Arn put over Cody, I really love that. Jake being sinister, totally agree with that. And I see what you're saying. When the pull apart happened, it looked like two guys that didn't really want to fight. You know what I mean?
You know what?
Like two guys that were sitting in a bar fighting over some beer nuts. That's what I saw.
It was believable. When Jake started talking about Cody's wife, called her a bimbo or whatever it was, when Arn started getting real on Jake, it was believable. And that, you could tell, at least in my opinion, they were just sitting there talking. They knew their points, but they just went out there and talked, and they were real with each other, and it was believable. So I say the fight or the pull apart might have been unrealistic at the end to me. Getting there was completely and absolutely.
There was fantastic. Getting there was fantastic. I totally 100% agree. What I would have done, and this is just retrospect booking, of course, which is what we're doing here. I think if they could have stood up and kind of had just that slow rope together where we thought something was going to happen, and then Jake sneers and walks away.
Yep.
I think that would have been a tiny bit better, you know, but one of those things when you see they're not in the they used to be, it's a little disappointing. You know what I'm saying? So that was a small part of it, you know, because I definitely want to see old school Arn Anderson Spinebuster Jake or old school Jake DDT Arn Anderson. Unfortunately, those two guys don't exist anymore. So what we have to work with what we have. And but I think that it was something they tried. You know, they tried, and you got to give them credit for that. But I mean, hell, I can barely go like I used to go. You know, so,
but you look good.
In my collar and elbow shirt, yes, I agree. I do look good.
Yes, you do. Absolutely. You know, I just wish at times they would do a better job of teaching some of the newer, younger viewers who Jake the Snake Roberts and the Enforcer Arn Anderson really are, instead of just being older coaches and managers right now. I wish they had some.
How do you do what footage could you use?
Exactly, and that's the problem. They don't have any footage, but you know, it's too bad they don't. So that way, when they see Arn with Cody, they're like, "Damn, that guy was a badass," or they can see Jake say, "Wow, that guy was sinister." Now I understand why Lance Hoyt or Lance Archer is like that, because look who's guiding his career. This guy's evil, but they don't have that. And unfortunately, there's a whole generation of wrestling fans that unless they're on the network actively looking up who they are, they have no idea how great they actually were.
This is the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Thursday. We are here on Fight TV. And of course, this past weekend, big weekend for Fight as Cage Fighter. The movie premiere took place over the weekend starring Jon Moxley, featuring appearances by several other stars, including Christian, Chuck Liddell, Luke Rockhold, and many, many more, including a man who was in the main event last night on Dynamite, and that was Matt Hardy. I think you might know him, Shane. Going up against Sammy Guevara, who Shane and I agree is the future of the wrestling business. Now, you made a point earlier, though, Shane, about how, you know, the kicks with Orange Cassidy, how they could have been sold a little more, or we could have been reminded about that. Here's the thing with Sammy Guevara. He got ran over by a golf cart 2 weeks ago. He got twist of fate with a neck brace. Looked like he broke his neck again a week ago. And now he's back again this week unfazed, unbothered by any of it. Is that okay for Guevara and his character and what they're doing with him overall?
Not to me. I think that is from a consistency standpoint, just from a storytelling standpoint. I mean, he took a fantastic hit from that golf cart, took arguably the best twist of fate ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And in a neck brace. Thanks for reminding me of that. In a neck brace.
The fancy neck brace, not the Heenan version.
And then the first thing I see is doing a promo, and his hair's going almost D'Lo Brownish, and I'm going, okay, so we're going to ignore that. And
well,
then
he is a
coming out
Spanish god. You know what I mean? He is a Spanish god. So maybe he heals quickly.
He must be Wolverine. I think the whole business is Wolverine now. You know, that's something I fought against as a producer in every company I worked for. What happens this week should matter next week. We can't just walk out and say, to hell with it. We do that so much in this business. You know, it took something, it really took me out of the beginning of that match just because how disappointed I was that they, you know, just forgot about it. You know, once we got to the meat of the match, meaning Matt and Sammy, these are two world-class competitors, and I enjoyed the match. But I was super disappointed with them.
But you know what, Shane? They did show us clips, and they did show us everything that had happened to Sammy, and it just didn't matter.
That almost made it worse.
It did make it worse. Absolutely.
Hey, I'm going to remind you that this guy fell off a Titantron, and he's okay 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
To give you guys a prime example of how silly shit could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, and even during the match, you know, Matt went over there and banged Sammy's head off the stairs like 6 times.
Yep.
And then he started working his arm after that, and I was going, that seems a little odd.
Hey, that was a great shot though when Matt had Sammy's head up against the ring post.
That was a beautiful shot. And two, these guys work really well together. Matt seems ageless right now. Matt's as good as he's ever been. So really overall really enjoyed the match. You know what I'm talking about. I don't want people to hear this and think I super enjoyed the match. It was just little things that I think that I wish that they could have had an agent that could have helped them out with.
Yep.
Well,
go ahead, Dave.
It didn't even have to be Sammy Guevara against Matt. You could have had Sammy still selling all the injuries and then get in there and cost Matt the match.
That's exactly what I would have done. So I don't know if it's a personnel issue, if they don't have enough bodies. Because you want a big name to wrestle Matt Hardy to lead into the angle with the All Elite versus Inner Circle. So maybe it's just a personnel issue. I don't know. You know, definitely WWE is dealing with that in the Performance Center too. There's only so many people they have, you know, so maybe AEW has that. So I'm guessing that's why they chose Sammy, but 100%, I don't think it should have been Sammy in that match.
They had Shawn Spears sitting ringside. He could have had a great match with Matt Hardy and then have Sammy come in there and do some shenanigans, because that way it protects everything Matt has done to him, you know? And
we did have the Shawn News update after, or the Shawn News Network.
But I'm just saying that it killed off everything that they've done with all the memes they put out, all the little, 5-second gifs of Sammy getting his neck, twisted, faded, and everything else. It just defeated the purpose of pretend like, hey, it didn't happen.
So here's my question, and this is interesting, because let's talk about the dynamics here on this show. Dave, you've been in the wrestling business over 20 years. Shane, you've been in the wrestling business over 20 years, a superstar all over the world. I've only wrestled in a couple gimmick matches, so I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But as a fan, both of you have said many a time the slight things that are not, I would call it traditional as it pertains to wrestling storytelling in AEW. But for me, from more of a fan perspective, that's exactly why I think I'm enjoying it better right now, is because I know that when wrestling is great and stories are told tremendously, you are brought in, you are sold, you are invested emotionally. I'm also invested emotionally, not in the stories, not as much in the matches, but maybe more so in the realism of the characters that I'm watching on AEW versus these wrestling rules they may not be following. So as you talk about, Shane, the challenges they have at the Performance Center, the challenges that you may have had as a producer in WWE, unteaching those things, is there not an audience and a place for those things on a long-term basis? And is AEW not that place right now?
It would depend on what specifically you're talking about. I mean, that's kind of a broad statement.
It was.
And I don't want to be old school versus new, because that doesn't help anybody. You know, there's got to be a compromise. Just logic. Logic should be universal. You know, but it's not. You know, what you think is logical, I may not. So it definitely isn't. But I think one thing that should be universal is the damage that pro wrestling does to our body is real.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it seems like we're constantly telling the audience that it doesn't hurt when it does. This shit destroys your body. I wake up every day banged to pieces.
Yeah.
Every button takes hurt, and it seems like, and this isn't just one company, this is all companies. I want to show this audience, hey, I can do a flip and it doesn't hurt. Who gives a shit if you can do a flip and it doesn't hurt? It does hurt.
You know what did hurt?
Phoenix hurt. Orange Cassidy, when Sammy Guevara ran over by a golf cart, that hurts. Why are we telling the audience that it doesn't?
I guarantee Britt Baker is hurt this morning. There's no way. I mean, when they dumped Nyla Rose on her leg, you know, she looked like she was in a whole lot of pain last night.
You know, it's a discussion for a longer period of time than we have now, but a lot of AEW fans, a lot of wrestling fans are really loving AEW right now because it is the anti-WWE. And I wouldn't say that's why I like it as much. We talked about this last week. It's such an easier show to watch. It's easier to watch at NXT. It's easier to watch at SmackDown. It's easier to watch than Raw. But those voids are indeed there. But talking about the realism, Shane, it's real, of course. But when I watch a movie, I'm told to suspend disbelief as well. And many years ago, Vince McMahon told us that wrestling was not about good versus evil. It was not about the wrestling we knew. It was making movies. So how is it different?
Well, hey,
because we really get hurt. We really get hurt. In the movies, I mean, only Tom Cruise and Jackie Chan are like the two guys that do their own stunts. Everybody else says cut, and they bring in a stunt man, and he comes in and he breaks his neck. He breaks his back. He's the one that has a spinal fusion, not the actors. They can go chill in the trailer. We are destroying our bodies, and we've really just gotten to this habit of just, like I said, actively telling the audience, hey, this doesn't hurt. But when it does.
Yeah.
And it used to be the opposite.
Shane, do you think it was with John Cena when John Cena became Super Cena and he would no-sell everything after getting his ass handed to him on a pay-per-view, show up on Monday night like nothing happened? You think that's when that all started to shift and change?
I'm not going to put the blame on any one person. You know, we used to see Hulk Hogan. We used to see Hulk Hogan get demolished, but he starts hooking up. And, you know, he was never really a guy, especially in any prime, where you saw him week to week to week. So, I mean, he sold the earthquake attack for months.
Yes.
Now he would sell that shit in 2 segments.
Right.
But I'm almost positive I remember an episode of Raw where John Cena broke his neck in segment 2, and he was back in segment 8.
Hey, Big Show got thrown off a roof. He was back that night. ECW probably had more, Dave, than anything John Cena did to do with the...
Right, but I'm not blaming John Cena, but I'm saying that's when you started to notice it more often. You know, was when guys weren't selling the injuries from the night before anymore.
Possibly, and here's the thing, too, and I can't stress this enough. I see guys backstage, and they're hurt, and they're walking slow, and they're banged up. But when the red light goes on, they suck it up and walk out to the ring, not selling, real injuries.
Yeah,
it happens all the time.
Yep.
We have morphed into the exact opposite of what started pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is like, hey, let's not kill each other, and make them believe we do. Now we kill each other and make them believe we don't. That's a complete 180, and it's taking out the jeopardy. It's taking out the respect of the casual viewers. If the casual viewers go, hey, these guys never get hurt, who gives a shit? Who cares if you never get hurt?
When you just said that right there gives credence to those casual fans to say, this is fake.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was after the first TLC match, Edge, Christian, and the Hardys. And the next night on Raw, I remember they came out and they could barely move. They were bandaged up, bruised up. That made that match that much better 24 hours later. And then by SmackDown, even on, whatever it was airing Thursday or Friday of that week, they could have been totally fine. It was already sold, right? It was already presented as it needed to be. You don't need to be hurt from getting run over by a golf cart for 6 weeks, but you got to show that it had some ill effect on you. And granted, Sammy did wear a neck brace last week, but that back in those days, and that isn't a long time ago, that was 2001, I believe, it was still being done, and something has happened subsequently to take that away.
Just recently on Monday Night Raw, and this was within the last 6 months, maybe 8 months, but it was Drew McIntyre. He did that reverse Alabama slam gimmick on Ricochet on the stair steps.
Mm-hmm.
Looked like he was murdered. Next week, he's back fine. And I mentioned that. I'm like going in the production meeting. I'm like, didn't we just kill him last week?
But it's Ricochet.
We can get a couple weeks, but it goes back to roster depth. We need these guys every week, so we got to forget because we don't have enough guys. We didn't have enough guys before COVID-19 for 3 brands, and by we I mean WWE. We didn't have enough guys for 3 brands before. Damn sure don't have them now. So, and maybe and 2, AEW all companies need a deeper roster. Just how it is.
And not to jump over to WWE, but to your point, Shane, watching Raw Monday night, you saw there is a huge lack of depth. It seems like they don't have any top stars right now, like guys that can draw a house.
Is that fair right now, given the situation? Is that fair to say?
It's not fair to say, but it's not untrue either.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it just like if you're watching it, it looks like a bunch of mid-card guys. And, the ongoing joke with me and Apollo Crews is when I had him on my team one year, he didn't wrestle for a pay-per-view for like 18 months. But now you're bringing him back in and like, well, who's he? Where's his backstory? They have enough time to show Becky Lynch being pregnant four times in a show, reintroduce Apollo Crews to the audience. Some of these people you haven't seen in 6 months.
Well, I feel like they are reintroducing Apollo Crews. I think he's had a couple really strong weeks of television.
Right, but I'm saying all of a sudden a few weeks ago, he just shows up, have a little bit of a backstory for him, because there's a lot of new faces on there right now that are there just as quote unquote enhancement or job guys to put over the other stars. And if you haven't watched Raw in a while, or you're not familiar with Apollo Crews, you think that he's one of them.
Yeah, Raw was a show, to me, was the weakest show of the week in terms of keeping me engaged and going, So I'm definitely inclined to agree with you. But I also agree with Damon. I mean, it's kind of unfair to say that right now because they had to let a lot of people go. They're so stuck in their head of we can't bring outside talent. We got to use this certain amount of guys no matter what. When they could call up anybody all over the world and go, hey, you want to do a couple of months? That was something I tried to implement in TNA. Why do we got to sign these guys to 3-year contracts? Why can't we sign them to 3 months? See if it works out. If it works out, keep them. If not, just use somebody else.
And with that being said, the talent that did get released, with the exception of a few, they weren't main event talents though either. I mean, right now, you have to now bring over Baron Corbin from the SmackDown brand, who didn't win Money in the Bank on his end or even have a strong showing, to now wrestle Drew McIntyre for, the championship. It just because they buried all their heels on Raw at WrestleMania, they have nobody for Drew McIntyre now.
And being a legit heel, if you're a true heel, people hate you, but you don't draw as much. Remember, nobody bought the Emperor merchandise from Star Wars.
Right.
Nobody brought Emperor merchandise. You brought Vader. Vader was a tweener. Corbin's a legit heel. When you're that true heel, a draw is that's on the baby face. That should be on the baby face's end.
Well, great discussion on a little sidebar discussion there, but I wanted to make one more point about AEW Dynamite, and that was we did see the return of Hangman Adam Page and also the Young Bucks to end the show last night. And Shane, this was surprising to me because earlier in the show, at least once, I think twice, JR and Tony Schiavone reminded us how long it's been since we had seen them. Then reminding me that I had not seen them, so it wasn't as surprising when I saw them at the end of the show.
I really didn't catch on to that, so you probably you paid a little bit more attention to that than I did. I actually kind of forgot about Adam Page during that last segment, because when the Young Bucks showed up, I was like, man, they kind of should have went off when the Young Bucks showed up. You know, you got to go off with them with their big return, because that's a big deal that the Young Bucks return to AEW. So I kind of felt when they jumped in, and then out of the far distance, I see this guy running across the field, and for a minute I think, oh, is that just some production guy that was in the shot? And he's doing this 50-yard dash, and I go, oh, wait a minute. That's just where so I thought they did a really good job of the way Hangman Page came in, but I was like, oh, okay, we're getting the whole crew back together. So I kind of like the way they did that at the end.
It was good to see the Bucks back. It was obviously good to build to the Stadium Stampede match, which this sounds like something straight out of World Class Championship Wrestling, and I love it. Stadium Stampede match Saturday at Double or Nothing, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. We didn't get to NXT, but let's give a quick summary, and I'll let you, Shane, give us your thoughts on what you took from the show. We saw, obviously, Charlotte Flair. She's coming back, and she's actually, she's not discriminating. She goes after both Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai, whatever it is.
God bless you. Yeah.
And then we also saw Drake Maverick getting a surprise win and making it a three-way match to determine the winner of the tournament. Big night on NXT, including some controversy, but drama with the Undisputed Era as well and Velveteen Dream. What did you think of NXT overall?
If you're asking me, I think Drake Maverick and Kushida had the best in-match story of the week. What they did storytelling-wise, working that arm, working that body part. Drake has done a tremendous job. He's got great facials. You feel sympathy for him. You feel sympathy. He tells a great story with his face. So I really like that match. What they're doing with that whole Cruiserweight title tournament is I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy it. Who's going to win? It's not predictable to me. It's not overly predictable. They've done some good things with it. Couple of just to jump around, Velveteen Dream doing the elbow off the top to the floor was nuts. But the outshot of Dream and then Dexter Lumis holding Roderick Strong like a dead body, and you see Dream in the background from a production standpoint and a producer standpoint. That was a beautiful shot. That was really well done. I like the tag team. What's his name? Birch and One. And I always call him by his Indian name because they're just beating those guys' ass. And I think Morrow called it one-way traffic, which I thought was a fantastic way to reference a squash. Just beating those guys' ass. I really enjoyed that. The Charlotte angle, I'm enjoying that. So overall, I thought they did really good. The only thing I didn't really like was the post-match angle. When the Garganos came out, I think I touched on the week. They're trying to be a little too funny, a little too hokey, and it came off as hokey. Johnny Gargano should be absolutely terrified of Keith Lee. In a real street fight, I promise you, he wouldn't stand there. And you got to be careful about going in a real street fight, but you can't ignore it either. You know, if you're not afraid of Keith Lee, then who the hell is he going to be afraid of?
Exactly. Well, he should be afraid of Killer Cross because the way they are using him right now, that guy is going to be drawing money.
The best interest in the game right now.
Absolutely. And, Killer Cross, he's got the size, he's got the girl, he's got the entrance, he's an ass kicker. And right now him going into Ciampa, I think that can only make Killer Cross better. And who's really improving every week is Dexter Lumis.
Yeah.
Just the way he moves around he is so committed to his character. I'm not saying he's the Undertaker, but it's very similar how he wrestles, like how whatever Dexter Lumis really is, a serial killer or whatever. He's just methodical. He's slow paced. Everything he does looks like he's killing somebody. And that guy's going to have huge upside potential.
And that was a big test for me for Dexter because when you're in there with somebody that's, from a mechanic standpoint, as technically proficient as Roderick Strong is, it's very easy to not look good because of how good Roderick Strong looks. Dexter did really well holding his own. There's still a couple of things he needs to work on, of course, but I thought he passed a very significant test there.
I do too.
In that match. And going back to your boy Karrion Kross, That's when you got to give production and just a big shout out. That entrance, all of that complete package. He's presented as a star. You know right away they care about this guy, and he's a badass. He's believable. The camera shot when they're doing the entrance of Scarlett, and she's sitting there singing, and then he pops up screaming. I actually rewound that a couple of times. That's how cool that was. I was invested in that guy. The Ciampa thing to me is a little rushed to go to somebody that big. I'd kind of like to see him, and this is just old school, and sometimes that comes out in me. I'd like to see him run through a couple more people and build up to that name value of Ciampa. But this guy might get, he might be on that rocket ship to the main roster sooner than later.
You know, do you think someone like Ciampa, who's had a long line of injuries over the years, do you think maybe his shelf life is almost up, and that's why they're rushing it, because they need this to get Killer Kross to that next level a little bit quicker?
You might be right. I didn't think about that, but he's had some significant injuries, and so yeah, there's a reason he likes to stay with NXT. He didn't want to do the travel schedule or the work schedule of that main roster, and that's a wise decision. No disrespect whatsoever for making that decision. You got to be conscious of things, especially considering your health. So you might be right. You know, I'm not going to disagree. I don't know, but you might be right about that.
NXT this past Wednesday, just last night rather, on the, I almost said WWE Network. I was thinking about The Undertaker's Last Ride show, which I'm loving, on the USA Network. But Shane, you've got a tremendous shirt on there that I'd love to hear more about. And then Dave, I think you've got a fun little gold gimmick going on under your shirt there. It looks like some collar and elbow gimmicks there.
It's all about the collar and elbow. If you go to collarandelbowbrand.com, you got to check out some of the shirts we got. Of course, there's a whole line of Hurricane Shane Helms shirts. And Shane, why don't you tell us about the shirt we're doing for our friend Shad?
Yeah, Collar and Elbow Brand has done a really tremendous thing, and man, the wrestling world suffered a big loss, you know, and from a really great human being in Shad Gaspar. You know, he's a great friend of mine, and that just took the wind out of my sails when I heard this news. But Collar and Elbow Brand, what they've done is they've come out with a shirt. 100% of the proceeds go to help Shad's family as they deal with the loss of a great father and a great human being in Shad Gaspard. Right now, I've heard that they've raised over $40,000, which is in 1 or 2 days is absolutely incredible. And man, I want to thank the wrestling fans and community for helping make that happen. But I want to encourage you that that's not enough for a family that's lost somebody, for a young son that's lost a father, for a wife that's lost a husband. I've already bought one, and I'm actually buying a couple more for a couple of my friends who want them, and they don't have the financial means right now due to this asshole virus to get one. So I'm just doing, and I'm proud to be a part of that Collar and Elbow Brand family.
You know, Shane, and I know it's been a really hard week for you. It's been everywhere. Everyone on social media has been talking about it. I was talking about it with Kevin Nash a couple days ago, and we both agreed that never ever, with the exception of some of the legends like a Dusty Rhodes or a Bobby Heenan or a Roddy Piper or our dear close personal longtime friend Gene Okerlund, you ever see so much love and support and everyone saying what an amazing human being somebody is. You always, you know, sometimes here and there you always hear, well, yeah, well, he was really like this. He wasn't like that. I have yet to hear anybody say, post, talk, or anything about anything that is not positive about Shad. I mean, I've met him a few times. Always fantastic to be around. He's been to our shenanigans parties for quite a few years. Always pleasant. Just great big smile, great big personality.
Yeah, every memory I have of him, there's a smile involved. He was just a happy, goofy guy, you know, lovable, you know, a big brother, a big teddy bear, you know, the gentle giant. You know, if there's ever those words have meant for anybody, it was Shad. I don't remember him ever being mad about anything. And certainly he had reason to be mad about a couple things in the business. And, you know, but never remember him being mad, just being such a funny guy, always smiling. He always had plans. This dude was hustling. And me and him would always joke about that, the hassle never ends, so neither can the hustle. Just reminded this week at San Diego Comic-Con last year, he calls me up and goes, hey, or text me, say, hey, won't you guys come meet me for lunch? Because I found this nice little spot. I'm like, oh, okay, because it's in San Diego, so we're trying to figure out, he's discovered this nice little spot for us to go have lunch. And we get there, and it's an Applebee's. This is the spot.
That is America's favorite bar and grill.
Yeah, and I mean, the food was great. I'm not saying it wasn't, but just, he knew what he was doing, and it was funny whenever he would nerd out a little bit in those places. I would call him Chad, and he would go from Shad to Chad. No offense to any Chads who may or may not be listening. And then when he would get like all gangster, I would call him Shad News Brown. He was just a buddy of mine, man. And I'm a miss that guy. And you never think about how you want to go out. At least I try not to. But man, if anybody, he went out like a true hero, absolute true hero. And
yeah,
man, he's going to live on. That story is not going to go away anytime soon. Just save my son. It's just such a powerful message. That's gonna live with me forever.
And you have to feel for his son, because for his son, it's a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I hope that he gets whatever help or guidance or counseling he needs going forward, because it's going to be a challenge for him as well.
It is, and I understand what you're saying. And without diving too deep into that, but there's a lot of kids that grow up not knowing if their father really loved them, never even met their father.
Absolutely.
And a lot of kids that grow up and to be teenagers and adults, and maybe they clash with their dad about something, especially when you're a teenager. My dad don't love me, this and that and the other. This young man knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that his father loved him more than his own life.
Yep. Yeah.
So I couldn't think of a better way to end the program today with a tribute to who we lost this week in Chad Gaspard unexpectedly. But if there was anything that could be said positively about it, was he went out as a hero and the hero that he is. So we want to thank you for joining us. We said we would do Be the Booker. We've run out of time, so we'll try to figure out if maybe we could bring you a little something extra before Saturday. I do know that I am required to make another draft pick by Saturday, which I will do, and we will have new edition tomorrow morning of PWR Today available on all our podcast channels and on YouTube as well. Hurricane Helms, thank you very much for joining us. David, thank you for joining us as well. We'll do this again on next Thursday night, PrimeTime with Hurricane Helms, and as you heard, you're actually hearing now for the first time, PrimeTime, David, with you and I.
Yeah. Yes.
Moving to Saturdays from Mondays starting next week. Saturday nights, we'll do a full week review starting next week. So we'll be prime timing on Thursdays and on Saturdays along with PWR Today, Monday through Friday as well. collarandelbowbrand.com for the shirts and to support the cause, and also PWR360.com to get all the latest on the PWR Fantasy Draft. Thank you guys again for joining us, and thank all of you for tuning in and watching us here on Fight TV. We'll see you again very soon.